A big baby.
What the?
Welcome back, all three of you. I know at this point saying welcome back is speaking into the void, but let me be Aunt Kathy talking about her cat's diabetes tumors on Facebook for a minute. Let me speak into the void. No, seriously, thank you if you're watching this video. Please let me know what would make it good enough you would want to come back and watch another video on the channel and such. Today is more of an informative video, less of a narrative video, because I didn't really see any videos like this when I tried looking up the topic on YouTube. Maybe I'm just bad at searching the internet, but who knows. Today, as you saw the title, we're talking about the Skinwalker. I tried to source and get all good information. If you have better information, source it, send it to me. I'll update the video. Yeah, thank you. So today we're diving into the myth of the Skinwalker, a figure that's often misunderstood and confused, especially it's correlated a lot with the wendigo, and while they're both from indigenous Native American tribes and cultures, they're actually very different. They come from very different places. So the wendigo comes from the Algonquin tribes in the northeast United States, and we won't go too much into their history. If you want their history, click on any random Lore Lodge video. Aiden Mattis will abuse your brain with the history segment. Which is kind of a joke, but it's true. They go over that all the time.
Along the way became the other main tribal identities of this group, those being the Algonquin, So interesting is because they hadn't been built by either the Algonquian or Iroquoian tribes.
The Skinwalker originates from Navajo folklore in the America's Southwest. Skinwalkers are also mentioned in the beliefs of nearby tribes in that area, but it's most closely associated with the Navajo. That's what they're known for. Like the wendigo, for instance, is a supernatural creature born from extreme greed or cannibalism, typically. It's somebody who has lost their humanity and become something else entirely. It has become a supernatural creature or figure, usually. But a skinwalker is not a creature at all. It's just a person, specifically a witch or some kind of dark medicine man who uses dark spiritual magic to transform into an animal and carry out evil deeds. So it's just a person using dark elements of spiritualism. Skinwalkers are called Yinataloshi by the Navajo, which translates with it, he goes on all fours. And that's super common across the board. You'll see that. And obviously there's no perfect direct translations from language to language. It's not how language works. But that's the best we can get. And that refers obviously to how the Skinwalker operates like an animal when it's doing its things. A brief history of the Navajo people. They live currently in the New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah southwest region of the United States. They migrated there from South Canada in some prehistory time. And they're similar to the cultures around them, like the Pueblo people, but they do have a bunch of distinct features. They refer to themselves as the Dine, meaning the people. The Navajo Nation is the largest reservation in the country. The Navajo Reservation is slightly larger than the state of West Virginia. If you're not in the United States, there'll be some pictures to help kind of show how big that is. In Navajo culture, witchcraft is seen as just one part of the broader spiritual belief system. It's also known as one of the ways or paths that a person can follow. And when I say witchcraft, I'm definitely using that term kind of loosely, not in the way that kind of the European ideas of witchcraft that have kind of stayed with us here, but more in the line of evil spiritual magical practices. And in the Navajo tradition, the boundaries between healing and medicine and harm and witchery is thin but clear. Like it's all part of one coherent belief system, if that makes sense. Now there's four witchery ways, four types of Navajo witchcraft. The witchery way, practitioners use corpse and corpse-related rituals like corpse powder. The sorcery way, using personal items like hair to cast spells. The wizardry way involves poisoning or creating cursed objects. And the frenzy way, using charms to influence people's emotions or thoughts. And skinwalkers practice the witchery way. They're said to be able to transform into animals, taking on the abilities of the creature they become. Their rituals resemble other Navajo ceremonies, but with dark themes. It's believed they use corpse powder and other things to curse victims. And it's important to mention that information about not just skinwalkers, but definitely them, but all kind of Navajo spiritualism is mostly kept within the tribe. It's not very publicly available, and not all of it is kept within the whole tribe. A lot of it shared just among elders, medicine people, kind of if you need to know, you should know. And especially with darker subjects. On the Sean Ryan show recently, we had an exorcist on. I shouldn't say we had. There was an exorcist on, and he talked about how kind of curiosity kills the cat. Like, you shouldn't be too interested in these dark, demonic, spiritual topics. And I think, there's the same outlook from them. Like, what good do most people have knowing about these things and thinking about these things? And so, it's not like there's much known. So I'm assuming the Skinwalker's rituals are kind of dark inverses of regular good spiritual rituals, kind of like how we might think of Satanists doing a black mass, resembling, the Roman Catholic mass, but then doing it with other nasty elements. So that's what I would think, is the Skinwalkers probably do inverses of important good spiritual rituals. And part of my point too on they don't share things publicly, if there's any information wrong, obviously, no disrespect, I'm trying to actually talk about them within the context of the culture and provide a good informational video, something that I think the internet lacks, especially on this specific subject. So again, if you have better information you can source, please link me to it. I will want to make an updated video, update this video. I want to make the best one. So David Zimmerman of the National Navajo Historic Preservation Department explains that Skinwalkers are individuals who have knowledge of both practical medicine and spiritual practices, skills that are intricately tied together. This balance of good and evil is why Skinwalkers are feared. They can blend in the tribe during the day and then turn into something sinister at night. To become a Skinwalker, a person must perform a deeply morally taboo act, similar to what we might think of the wendigo performing a taboo act. Though the wendigo seems to be more of an overtime thing, the Skinwalker, the taboo act most associated with the stories are killing a close family member, a brother, a sister, a mother, a father. And then once initiated, so to speak, into being a Skinwalker, they wear the skin of the animal they want to transform into, hence the name Skinwalker. And while they can transform into any animal, I guess, coyotes are the most common due to their spiritual association with trickery and death. And I think that's interesting. A lot of parts of the belief systems tie together, right? Like I said, it's one coherent belief system for the most part. There's no separation between kind of the cryptid, dark supernatural, and the rest of the spiritual religion, like we see kind of in the early European culture here, and even today to an extent. In Navajo culture, wearing the pelt of a predator like coyote or wolf is highly taboo, except for specific ceremonies. And it's hard to tell if this is due to the association of these animals with the Skinwalker, or the Skinwalkers wear those pelts due to the association with dark things being a taboo. So, little chicken and the egg there. But yeah. Now this is where Skinwalkers seem to become slightly more than a regular, human practicing magic, for lack of a better word. Skinwalkers are considered nearly impossible to kill. Legend says a bullet or weapon coated in white ash can kill them. But there's also reports that Navajo medicine men know rituals and spells to fight Skinwalkers. Skinwalkers are fast and can mimic sounds of animals. So like the most common stories you'll read, especially on like the Reddit or whatever, is just like a coyote keeping up with a car on the highway, or someone getting out of their car in the middle of the desert and they hear someone screaming. They walk out to where someone's screaming and boom, there's a creepy looking coyote out there. Or things of that nature. One distinguishing feature between the Skinwalker and the animal they imitate is the Skinwalker's eyes remain human even in animal form. So you'll see things like, they'll have human hands and feet. There'll be an animal walking on the back two legs. And while those are still part of the tradition, those are mostly kind of these added in after cryptid things. The main thing is the eyes. The eyes remain human looking or different than the animal in the animal form they take. And unlike I'm going to, again, lack a better term, European cryptids like the werewolves or the vampires, the Skinwalkers aren't mindless monsters. At their core, they're just people, witches who have chosen a dark path. I think that's an important distinction, that we're not talking about some kind of creature. We're talking about a person choosing to practice evil spiritual beliefs. In the process of my research, I came across an interesting article from Peggy E. Alford titled Anglo-American Perceptions of Navajo Skinwalker Legends. As I read the article, I hope to articulate well her point and kind of summarize, but it's basically that the English American brought different context to the native stories, And the Skinwalker is the best example of that. Since the beginning, the Anglo-Europeans came here with a much more mythical, fantastical outlook on like cryptid magic type things. It was much more of a interesting, dark, kind of separate part of the spiritual belief systems. They almost brought like a horror-like lens. While that was very different than the outlook of the people who believe in these things, of the Navajo and other natives, who this was just a bigger part of nature. This was a bigger part of the all-encompassing belief system. It wasn't super fantastical. It wasn't supernatural. It wasn't mythical. And the most important part is that they were cautionary tales. So like how us who didn't have cable watched Cubo and watched, those bad shows that were supposed to teach you something. These stories were all about teaching you about fitting into society, respecting morals, not committing taboo acts, respecting nature, being a part of the group, and such. And then warning you against hanging out and associating with people who do negative things that influence the group negatively. Like all religions, the stories are there to help you fit into society better. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not dissing religion here. And so I think that's important to think about, that these stories are meant to teach, and they're not meant to be fantastical and mystical and supernatural. They might be those things to us, and they're still cool. And I'm not disrespecting the stories. There's plenty of great stories out there. And I think, actually, the closer you get to the traditional, real deal Skinwalker that is believed by the people who believe it, the Navajo, you find better stories. I definitely find that. I live in the American Southwest. That's why this one interests me so much. And I don't get bothered, but I think it is a shame how much it gets correlated as being the same thing as a wendigo, because they're not. They're different, and I think the stories are pretty cool. So that's kind of the end of the video. If you want to stick around at this point, I'm going to just ramble a little bit. But like I said, please let me know what I could do better, make you want to subscribe. Thank you. This has been Bendy. Good night.